You're very welcome. So the open submission this year, I think it's the first time we have a theme that Terry selected. So it's been a really interesting process as well, seeing how that works. Yeah, so thank you everybody for coming. Over to you, Terry.
Okay. The interesting part was when the selection, I looked back at it, I realized that I had not so much painting or drawings, or it was a lot of media work, photography, digital elements to it. And I felt that was quite interesting. And I was wondering how this happened, or is painting not fashionable anymore, or is because of the thematic, is it easier to respond with photography or with multimedia? This was the big question, and I think I want to go a little bit into that and talk to some of the artists. Why photography? Why media? Okay, thank you. Yeah, just back what I started to say, that it was interesting to select from such a big submission, over 100 pieces, and to kind of bring a show together who fits to the thematic. And I said the kind of interesting part is when you look at the work, how it fits to the thematic and how the work has happened, either by creating a new piece of work or a piece you had because it was there, made last year or some years ago, and how that would fit into it. And yeah, let's go to Tina. Is Tina around? Yeah.
Hi, Therry. I'm here. A nature photographer. That's
yeah
my buzz.
Yeah.
And the brief for this exhibition really resonated with me, because I feel like Alice a lot of the time when I'm out in the bog. I take a lot of photos in the bogs and wetlands, and sometimes I feel like I do fall in that rabbit hole, because what I use is a macro lens, which allows me to see flora and fauna within the bogs and wetlands that you wouldn't necessarily see with the naked eye. So it is my looking glass. It literally is my looking glass. And this particular, what we have here in my image here, is a creation by an insect, which is really blows my mind. The wonderful thing about macro photography, which is close-up photography, is that you lose all sense of scale. What you're looking at, it could be very tiny, but you could when you look at it through the macro lens, you can capture it in a way that you don't know what size it actually is. But this is only about half an inch in width. You will find them in bog pools in late spring, and what it is it's a structure created by the caddisfly larva, which is an aquatic larva. And it creates this amazing construction on its back. It weaves this amazing structure on its back, and it keeps it suspended in the water, and it also protects it from predators. And this is what's left, is its house left behind. It is like Alice through the looking glass. It is something that you would easily pass by.
That's interesting, actually, because it's not something I immediately would take on board when I looked at the image. It's fabulous. It kind of has a wonderful reflection in myself, and I suppose that's why I liked it a lot. But then again, I was questioning, can we do that? Would that be a possibility to do in painting or not? Maybe we ask one of the painters who are I don't know who is here
Did we
as
have
a painter.
Una?
Yeah,
Where
that's
are you?
right.
So do
Yeah,
you-
let's
Hi.
go to
Yeah.
her.
you can let me find Una's painting. And that's quite a good see from Tina's looking down a microscope.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So here we are.
Rosalind, or Photo 51, Rosalind Franklin, whose X-ray crystallography led to the confirmation of the double helix structure of DNA, but she died before getting any recognition for this. And
Yeah.
Watson and Crick famously, and Wilkins got the Nobel Prize in 1962 for that, obviously. And this was work I had made previously. Sorry, were you asking about Tina's work from a painter's point of view?
Yeah, and I mean, it's actually quite interesting to see the two of them, because they both have, there is something who is quite similar to it in terms of what you, how Tina has achieved her photos and what you represent in your painting.
Yeah, absolutely. Tina's image is beautiful, and it could be beautiful drawing or painting. But it's a beautiful photograph. You know, I'm not sure I'd mess with, you know, what's perfect. Leave it be what it is. And from Alice's point of view, of I think the sentence you used was about how she became a different person several times in the day, or changed. And and Rosalind Franklin's life was very different. Came from a very, very supportive family where her parents, especially her father, encouraged education of girls, and she was Jewish. And I just noticed that she completed her PhD in 1945, you know, the end of the war, and she was studying all through this wartime. So she had quite a, you know, she would go, she was in a very misogynistic work environment. So her, you know, her persona.
Yes, I think I liked that idea, how you presented obviously the painting, and it really worked for me in terms of subject matter, because yes, it had the similarity, and though it was quite different to Alice, but it's very close to what we were looking for sure. You know?
I like as well how when a curator takes something that you've made for a different reason and can give it a different meaning as well, you know.
That's good. I just see there a monoprint or a print from this here
Verona
next to it. And maybe we just talk about that a little bit. Is she here? Is she with us?
Yeah, Verona's here.
Veronica.
Verona. What I felt immediately about it just made me think of my mother at the time, when she was very much declining with dementia. So that image kind of makes me think of her, and sometimes I think, is that maybe what she experienced, kind of that darkness and confusion, and nothing is really in focus, and it's just a very different world, or I just project maybe my own feelings, how I felt because of shared,
of course,
you know, and her decline.
So it's quite figurative, though, isn't it?
That's where that came from, and the way
it has nearly a depth to it, what a photo in the photography or in the media, mixed media, you can achieve. It has this layering, but it's quite beautiful. I didn't actually realize that monoprint can be layered so many times, and that gives the depthness or that deepness into it. In one way, it's quite figurative, and I can see where Alice in Wonderland comes into it. And
I thought,
it's lovely to see.
when she enters
Yeah.
the forest where she can't think or remember the words of things, the small episode where,
Yeah.
and this again resonates. My mother more and more wasn't able to think of the words of objects around her and names and all that. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
my experience
Yeah.
as well. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for submitting. It's great to have that. I think I would like to go to, I would like to go if Maurice is around. I would love to go and see this after Verona, because again, that natural sense of feeling, but also this kind of not really relating directly thematically, but then there's a lot in there, and I can see kind of Verona's piece, and I would love to talk a little bit how this piece has happened and how you achieved what you have, that collage element to it.
Sure. First of all, thank you for the invitation. This was a self-portrait that I took, I think it was last year during lockdown. So the whole 2 years that we've been in lockdown, I've been producing a series of self-portraits, basically of how it's been to be in isolation, alone. I just moved to Ireland as well, so my network's quite reduced. And I just moved to a new house, and I saw this throne, and that's sort of for where the image started, sort of building from. I had a chair, I had the crown, and then the different elements. And I think it's sort of, that constant battle with the self when you're in isolation and you look everywhere and you just see your face in every reflection, and the different battles that are involved in those moments. That's how the image came to be. And I took it in a very foggy day outside in the cold, like different elements just sort of fused together.
Yeah, it's a very kind of the first time I saw it, I felt it's quite a brave piece of work, because it's always difficult to deal with human form and nature, but I had to go back and look at it again. I had to look at it, I have to say, a couple of times to just understand the mechanism of how you composed the work. Maybe that was, and then achieving this beautiful end result. It's very, again, a very strong piece. And I think, this is where I question myself ongoing between, a painter and obviously a media artist or photography, and it's an interesting question, mainly today. But what you also said was about the isolation. Is this came along because of the situation we are in it, that we were a lot isolated, and obviously we were not able to communicate the way we were. It's a new way of looking at it.
Yeah, definitely. And I started taking self-portraits with the lockdown. So I started with Corona, basically. And my drawings are awful. I don't know how to draw, but I'm originally a performer, so I feel more comfortable using my body. So that's why it's sort of the camera is just facing me, because I just feel more comfortable.
Yeah. But that makes the work very personal, and that's important for me to know that the artist working in a more personal way.
Yeah.
Because
should we take a moment and just mention the censored element?
Yeah.
So, because these works are being printed A1 and it's a public space, I talked to the manager of the theatre and to our arts officer, and they said, we're programming children's shows during that week, and they said, you will get loads of complaints. And Therry came up with the most absolutely brilliant solution. So this is the version that's going in the outdoor gallery in public. Because like you're like looking at it on the small screen, looking at it in an A1 poster, the nakedness is much bigger. So I thought that it still like is opening up a conversation. Like we had a really long conversation between the three of us about what was acceptable in public and what was, it's like that, because I thought maybe we'd put it just around the corner. So it was within the theatre, but then because we have these children's performances, we couldn't really do that. So it was I thought it was a fantastic solution, Maurizio.
Thanks. I debated with myself as to if I should introduce changes or not, because I believe that the piece is one, and that's the thing you're saying now. But at the same time, I think, you know, a piece of art should respond to the context and sort of be open to change. And I think it's interesting that it can open a discussion for something else, you know, about nudity. Is nudity always supposed to be censored, or is it within specific context that we should censor certain types of nudity or whatever? So that's why I left it
actually ask you to do it. Yeah. Because of that, you know, the integrity of the work. And then I really wanted it to be there in the outdoor gallery. So
and appreciate you had a discussion trying to see if you could get it in the exposition.
Well, you can't select because of this. I think you just need to go ahead and select what you feel is best, and not questioning this, but I can understand. And the solution is brilliant. I know it's a brilliant solution to it, and I'm glad you could find that solution. So, now, Charlie, maybe you can answer that a little bit.
Well,
your
I'll have
work
a
is
go.
quite, yeah, okay. It's quite, you know, it is Alice. It doesn't really leave a lot of question open in terms of thematic, but maybe in terms of the idea and how you achieved the image. It'd be interesting to maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm just going to invent what I'm going to say now, straight off the hoof, which is the way that I always work. This particular piece of work is part of a series of probably about 100. So I've been doing this kind of Alice story for a long time, through The Looking Glass and the sequel. But I also mix things up like Gormenghast by Mervyn Peake. I'm interested in Gulliver's Travels. I've done a huge mural based on the works of José Saramago, Portuguese novelist called The Stone Raft, which they're all kind of fanciful stories. And I like the kind of idea of narrative. And just to reassure you, I actually trained as a painter many years ago, and also a printmaker. But for the last probably 10, 15 years, I've kind of almost exclusively based my activity on using collage. So there's a little reference to a Magritte painting. The only consistency in one sense is the drawings of Tenniel, which I really, really admire. So I'd just like to also make that kind of reference, that I do like to use the Tenniel kind of reference, and also play with scale. You know, that one presumes maybe you read the book, Tweedledum and Tweedledee are quite big, quite, you know, quite scary people. But here we've got Alice standing, towering above them. So as I say, this is just a part of a series which is ongoing. And I've actually now adding into that. There's a book which I read many years ago called Automated Alice by Jeff Noon. And the whole thing's set in a futuristic city, Manchester in England. And it's all based around DJs, music, nightclubs, etc. So please look, keep your eyes open for the next series, which is Alice in Manchester. That's me done.
Yeah. And is it that, I mean, you consider it, obviously, it is more illustration what interests you now. And do you feel the painting didn't give you that kind of making? It's more difficult in painting to come to
No, no, no,
the
no. I
more,
don't.
no?
No, I don't really differentiate. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
a trained artist, whether a designer, ceramicist, doesn't matter, sculptor, then you can have an understanding of composition, line, tone, weight, balance. You know, the whole gamut of what we use as a trained professional artist. So I use all of those skills in making this digital image as I would if I painted it. Yes, I could sit down and paint it. But why use a garden fork to dig the garden when I can use a rotavator? And you know, you've got the kind of idea of Alice in Wonderland, you know, by Carroll. It's pre-surrealism. You know, like Samuel Foote is pre-surrealism. Gulliver is you know, so all of these kind of fantastic novels that were written, you know, One Sunny Day in the Middle of the Night, which is Samuel Foote, you know, 1750 something, you know, so surrealism isn't new. It's an old concept. So I'm just representing these.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I suppose it is a book. It's something you can read several times, and it still fits into the contemporary time, and that's the beauty about it.
So Judy is here, Terry.
Okay. Yeah. This is interesting because I think it's interesting because you're talking about your mother, yes, or your grandmother, and the way you composed it, the dresses. Is she here?
Yeah, she's here. She's muted. Can you unmute Judy, please?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yes. Hello.
Yes. Hi, Judy.
It was my grandmother. Yeah, my grandmother was a seamstress. But this work sort of reminded me of Lewis Carroll's sort of quote, because, you know, when we look in the mirror, like we see different versions of ourselves, and like each one suggests a different sort of alternative life we could lead. Like often, like when you try on a very glamorous dress, your demeanor changes, you know. You can imagine a life of sort of romance and magic, kind of just like Alice did when she looked, but just as she experienced when she looked through the looking glass, you know. But my grandmother, like, as I said, she was a wonderful seamstress, so much so that all the neighbors used to say that the kids looked like film stars, you know. And then my family, my father's family lived in South Inner City, Dublin. And so I managed to salvage some vintage dresses that my aunts wore. Now, they would have worn a couple of these dresses because they were lucky, like they had opportunities for glamour because they used to go to tea dances and to the theatre. And there used to be kind of what was called music halls, where you dress up in your finery and go out. So they had great opportunities for glamour, you know. But I discovered the old dummy that my grandmother used, you know. So what I did is I dressed the dummy in these vintage dresses, and I drew into the scenario that I'd photographed and photocopied, you know. The mirror is very important in psychoanalysis and that. And it's about sort of the idea of like the life you could have had, or the scenario, the person you could have been, you know. So, and I feel that Alice kind of experienced sort of an alternative universe, if you like, by going through the looking glass.
Well, the interesting was a sort of different style of dresses, and you know, there were probably different times and periods of time, and that it's kind of interesting. It's a lot of memory there, what comes along with it, and it's lovely. It's again the personal element to it makes the work really valuable. Yeah. Next to it, we have a very nice painting. I don't know if she's here, but it's. I like it's It's a pure painting. I think it's about painting. When I look at that piece, and though it could be a photograph, I suppose, but that's the lovely thing about it. It is a pure painting, and
We have Sharon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is lovely.
Sharon. Okay, let's talk about it's a shadow play. Am I right?
Yes, you're right. Yes, it's like light shafting through a fan light window across a wall, catching the tops of things.
Yeah.
Well, at the time this was taken, I was very interested in how light falls on things and alters them.
Yeah.
And how falling into shadow changes people, it changes the shape of everything. And I'd watched this light falling through the day at different times, and then the moonlight even occasionally, and it had such a different character behind this feature you see at the closest to the right edge. I think is just a curlicue. It's not a figure or anything. It's just a curlicue. But when the light fell on it and the shadows, took the base away, because that's a mirror, that thing on the right. It actually had different characters, and it became sort of personified, it seemed to me. And in this case, both the curlicue and the shadow, it just reminded, in this particular photograph, of an angel. And I just found that so interesting that, and then when you made the call out with the brief, this came to mind immediately, because it's of a mirror. And this is behind the mirror that's fascinating and changing. And when you see leaves moving through the shadow as well, that can be, just as so mysterious. It made me think, like, what's hidden, the hidden characters we have, now benign, now sinister, now vague, now very clear and sharp focus inside, that people only see if they look in, if they actually look closely and catch it sometimes, even in a trick of the light. All that Alice sees when she looks into the looking glass are the aspects of herself. I'm playing with theatricality as well. I get it, just there's always something. When I used to work in theatre as an actor, I was always catching images for the character and drawing images and painting images, sculpting images. I've always used art as a kind of other way of interpreting my reality.
Fair enough. That's great.
Thank you, Terry, just in response to the two questions you've raised, one about photography and painting. And when Tina was speaking, it just really struck me what she seems to enjoy, forgive me for speaking on your behalf, Tina, about how you lose the scale of something when you use the macro lens. And it reminded me of Georgia O'Keeffe, the painter, a consummate painter, who worked exactly that way as well. And she said, no one really sees a flower in the world if you're really getting close. And in a way, I think that when you ask, are we all converting to photography because it's quicker? I don't think that's the case.
Both can be possible. I mean, painting can be also represent a moment in time. Okay.
Emma's here.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here, and thank you for inviting me to take part in the show. I'm very interested in this conversation because I am a painter, and this piece is a screen print on a collaged background. And I submitted it for a number of different reasons. To reference the very first question, one of the things that struck me was the printing of the image. That the final exhibition would be a printed image. And after spending so much time over the lockdown trying to think about how you represent painting in the best possible way on a flat screen, really struggling with it, I thought, well, it's not going to work. Particularly for my work, it's very abstract, and you lose the distance and all the space that I struggle so hard to create in the physically making them the minute they go flat on into an image. So that's why for me this made much more sense to submit something that was already quite graphic and quite flat to be reproduced in that way. I thought it would suit it very well. The piece itself comes from a body of work that I've been making alongside my paintings for the last 2 years. I've been an associate artist in Cultalan McAdam O'Fake, which is an Irish language arts centre in Belfast.
Yeah.
And this obviously is an Irish language word, and for anybody who's not familiar with it, it has multiple meanings, but it means peculiar or strange or unusual. And I felt it really, it fitted with the theme, first of all, I suppose, because the very meaning of the word, but also it kind of echoed with me because of my experience of even just being in this centre, because I'm not a fluent Irish speaker myself, and I've been learning Irish, which is where these series of words came from. It stemmed from language acquisition, and then very quickly became kind of an exploration of identity and language and how we learn and how we assimilate it.
In one way, it fits to Alice in Wonderland, because I think because of the playfulness, but also I think she was playing with words herself a fair bit, and this is why it makes it interesting to look at this word. Although I don't have Irish language or anything, but the question is maybe also interesting. Could you have painted instead of screen? Because you said you are a painter.
I think for sure I could have, but part of the essence then of the idea that it was originally text, it was collage text that was cut from newspapers. I wanted to continue, even though I was turning them into kind of the tools for making art, I wanted to still refer back to the printed process and the idea of...
Yeah. But let's talk to Kevin.
Well, my work's all about just looking at things in a different way. Really what I do is look at structures and maybe things that you take for granted and you see every day, and like a looking glass, try to change your perspective and change your point of view, so that you get something completely different. This one is taken from a shot in Dublin. It's from Penny's in Mary Street. People walk past there every day and never actually see it. So this is all about just changing the way we see things. Particularly where I come from in Ireland and Belfast, there's quite a lot of things that you need to change. People have all these different traditions and political beliefs, which when you look at them in detail, are completely it can be completely different.
It still has a very sculptural, solid kind of perspective behind it. It is very interesting.
Yeah, I'm very interested in structure. I mean, what I'm trying to do is, a sort of map a building or a map a facade, take loads and loads of different details of it, and then start to construct and build with, using things like Photoshop and stuff. Well, I mean, I love working with very defined structures, as you said, like a 3D quality to it, because I'm quite interested in that. And use things like Photoshop to enhance the colors and change the colors a bit.
Yeah, of course, yeah. It's interesting. I think we have had really the submissions were interesting, because we had a wide diversity of photography work and media work. We were slimmer in the painting, what makes it a kind of interesting, where I felt we need to question that really, why we had less a kind of painting and the making element, the physical element of making. I was always myself interested in how work is happening actually, and I think that is the lovely thing about the show, is that we are able to talk to each other, and that I could talk to the artist and listen and see where the artist is coming from and how the artist is creating the work. I think that's always something difficult when you go into a gallery to realize how the work is happening. And although that's nice as well, when you see the work in the gallery that you have to question yourself and that the answer is not being given. And I suppose that is a good thing in one way. And if we have more people.
Oh, David Bickley's there. I didn't see you. It's a quite interesting after Kevin's, I suppose. There is a
well, similar because you've got your mirroring effect. I think mine's inverse mirroring, so that's why it's slightly different. Most people, when they mirror images, they mirror them that way. I mirror them that way.
Yeah. So
they look kind of different. It's a still from video, basically.
I know your work from video. I think you have submitted a couple of times to Homeland.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to share another one now. So that grew out of this project here. Right? So
okay,
that kind of that's where that.
It's quite interesting. Do you kind of visualize the sound? How you create the sound with your visuals? How do you
I make the sound,
fit that into it?
I make the sound first, right? So I make all of the well, certainly all of the music is made first. The sound design might come second. So over here, you can't see, I have a studio.
Yeah, yeah.
Lots of gear and weird little gadgets like that. So I make electronic music is what I do, you know, because if I imagine what I want to do and then I make the piece of music, I've locked down the atmosphere immediately. So I can never forget it. So I can just play it and I know where I'm going with it. So the work doesn't really wander that much.
But it's so the visual comes first and then the sound, you create the sound after it, or does the sound bring the visuals for you?
It's yeah, well that's difficult to answer on. Well, on that one, I'm trying to remember. I can never remember how I made these things, you see, and I can never really make them twice because they go through a lot of process. I use a lot of different programs, so I don't just use like one computer program to do anything really. I use like loads of them.
Yeah.
And this one, I definitely did the image first, so that wouldn't be a normal thing.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of my stuff is kind of recycling, taking older stuff and reprocessing it.
Yeah, yeah, great. I mean, there are, I mean, when I look at this particular one, you could talk about drawing as well, because there is that element. I can see similarity to the physical application, but it is interesting how you create your images. And I think it'd be interesting to more talk about is sound visual. Does it need an image or not? But because we don't have a pure sound piece here, I think we leave the discussion for another time.
Funnily, recently I've been working with a number of artists who are charcoal or pencil artists.
Okay.
And I've been producing animated work with them.
Okay, so thank you very much too, and hopefully to see you on the 13th and the opening, on the physicality and meeting in person. That'd be lovely. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Therry.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.